Now it's a pleasure to have our next Proficiency in my District presenter. These are really powerful sessions for me because it's really people talking about where the work is and the successes and challenges. So please give a warm welcome to Amy St. Arnaud.
Hello, and thank you guys for having me. So I'm Amy St. Arnaud, and I'm the curriculum coordinator, and I teach Spanish at North Reading High School. I'm going to start off just giving you a little snapshot of North Reading and what our district and our department look like, and then I'm going to tell you about our path to proficiency. So here's some demographics from North Reading, and I thought this would be useful to you to see if maybe you have a similar population. You can see we have almost no diversity in North Reading, and with that, we don't really have any heritage speakers enrolled in our department either. So most of our students who are studying languages with us, it is their first exposure to a second language. And then we're kind of situated, if you don't know where North Reading is, we're situated kind of inside 495 and right off of 93. Some other fun facts about our school and our demographics is we're entering year 5 in a state-of-the-art middle and high school building campus. So before 5 years ago, our middle school and our high school were different locations, and now we're in the same campus. And so that has really helped our path to proficiency, that I oversee the middle school as well, and the teachers are just a walk down the hall, and there's just so much more collaboration, so that's just been really great for us. And then, of course, everything a state-of-the-art building brings has been great for us as well. Right now, our middle school kids do have one-to-one Chromebooks. Last year, they introduced it in the 7th grade. So our 7th and 8th graders this year will have one-to-one Chromebooks. And then so at the high school level, we'll inherit those kids as 9th graders next year. So we're rolling that out. But our high school teachers, and before our middle school teachers as well, we have lots of access to Chromebooks and iPads and laptops and all of those things. So we have lots of access to technology, which is great and has helped as well. This year, we will award the Seal of Biliteracy, and I just want to give a huge thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about collaboration, how important it is, but I'll definitely start out with Kim and Pat and Nicole Sheriff, who's not here, for just putting together the toolkit and all the emails, and for us at least implementing going in next year and starting the Seal of Biliteracy has been very easy because you guys did all the hard work for us. So thank you so much, and to all the districts that chime in on the emails and share, thank you so much, because it's just been really helpful to us, and we're just going to sail smoothly next year with the Seal of Biliteracy because of it. So thank you very much. And then also I just want to give a shout out to the administration in North Reading. The administration's very supportive of our path to proficiency and what we're doing. We have not been successful expanding into the 7th grade. So, right now in 7th grade we offer exploratory, and then we start level 1 in 8th grade, and we're trying to get level 1 pushed down into 7th grade, and unfortunately that has not happened. But pretty much any other initiative we've tried, they've supported us 100%. So I want to thank you to them for that. And I think most notably is starting next year, we have a population decrease by quite a bit. Our senior class next year is 30 less kids than it was the year before. And as an administrator, I guess looking through their lens and looking at budget and whatnot, they're like, oh, can we take a foreign language teacher to cover freshman seminar or something like that? And from some of the things I'll talk about that I learned last year at Proficiency Academy, I had the tools in my tool belt to say no, and they listened. And so next year we're looking at like class sizes of like 15 and 17 kids because we're staying fully staffed, even though there's been a significant drop in our school-wide population. So I really want to thank our administration for that. And then just a quick snapshot of our department. So we offer exploratory French and Spanish in the 7th grade, and 8th grade is when we start level 1. We teach French and Spanish. At the high school, we offer level 1 again, 1 through 5, and AP Spanish. We have offered level 1 French, depending on the year, depending on the numbers. This past year, we did offer level 1 French. Next year, we're going to offer level 2 French, but we're actually putting some level 1 kids into level 2. So our teachers are very committed to differentiation, especially there. Our middle school staff is we have 2 full-time teachers for 8th grade. We have 1 part-time teacher for 7th grade exploratory. And then our high school, we have 2 part-time French teachers. We have 3 full-time Spanish teachers, and then I teach .8, and then I lead the department as well, K through 12. And since we start in 7th grade, 7 through 12 is leading through curriculum, but I really like to see my job as K through 12 because I spend a lot of time advocating for the K through 6 piece, even though it's not actually happening in the classroom yet. Okay, so there's just a little snapshot. Between the 2 pictures, I was able to capture everyone, so just some faces, our department, and our path. So it's really hard to pinpoint when exactly our path to proficiency started. So I just chose to go back 2 years, and that's when I started leading the department. And my first shout out was my PLC, my professional learning community, who is here for the most part as well. So Kim Talbot again, and Steve, from Melrose, Carlos Brown, who's also here from Wilmington, and then Jorge Allen from Andover is not here, but several Andover teachers are here. And first, Kim, Carlos, and Jorge, just anytime I have a question or anytime I need a resource as a leader, they're there for me in an instant. And I don't know how we would have done any of this without them. And then to the teachers in those districts who have opened up their doors to us. As you can see here, we've hosted North Reading site visits and attended site visits. Those schools have opened up their doors to us, and our teachers have gone in and watched teachers from those schools teach. And that has been the puzzle piece that has made all of this work, is the inter-district collaboration and making sure that we're not making the same mistake as the department next door to us, or we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or something like that. We're able to move so much faster and so much more efficiently, learning from each other. So a huge shout out to those districts and allowing me to lean on their leadership, and then allowing my teachers and all of us to go into their classrooms, then also visiting us and coming to see us and giving us feedback as well. The next thing I think that was really important was I rearranged the budget a bit, and I took pretty much all of our money out of instructional supplies. We don't need textbooks anymore, as we've talked about quite a bit, and I moved it on to PD. And so now the teachers from North Reading, a few of us came last year. We come here for free. We go to MaFLA for free. The school pays for all of that. And so high quality professional development for the teachers that's paid for by the school is really, really important. We invited Catherine Ritz to come in, so we went right to the source, straight to Catherine. We said, come help us. And she did. She came in for a half-day PD with us. And we still, at our department meetings, we still talk about, we still say, oh, remember what Catherine said about this? Remember what Catherine said about that? So 2 years later, her words of wisdom have stuck with us. We decided first to tackle presentational speaking. So during Curriculum Council, which was time outside the school day, or outside normal meeting time, not paid, but awarded with PDPs, we put together Curriculum Council and we tackled presentational speaking. With that, we made the presentational speaking rubric. We leaned on Catherine quite a bit in her input and her help when we were doing that, when she came to visit us. We introduced 4 common speaking assignments, calibrated during department meetings. I think all really important pieces to a path to proficiency. And then during our department meetings, instead of just going through like housekeeping items, we spent time, calibrating assessments and, working out tweaks on common assessments, things like that. So I think our time together as a department is very valuable. We have almost none of it. And so when you're doing it, try and take care of housekeeping and whatnot through emails or through informal chats in the teacher rooms, and work, spend department time like working, so we try to do that. And then I think also another really important piece is that we really started to talk about the levels of proficiency, and not just make it teacher talk like amongst us, but explain to the students what the different levels were, how to go from one level to the next, like what it means, and then also talk about it with parents too. So just make that language really familiar to all stakeholders, not just like teacher talk. And here's just a few pictures I have, talking about proficiency. We start off the year now where we teach the kids about the levels of proficiency, and we have them, draw it how they want. You can see we get like pyramids and trees and skyscrapers and ice cream cones with different scoops, and they all do it. And then we ask the kids to write a little narrative about how you work through the different levels. We hang them up in the room, and since we do this like the first or second day of school, it's hanging up in the room by the time the parents come in for the welcome night. night, so then we can use that as a nice visual when the parents are visiting our classrooms for the welcome night. And then just this past year, some of the things we did was we took the work we did with the presentational speaking rubric, and I'm really glad we started with presentational speaking, because to go from presentational speaking to presentational writing was like that. It was basically take out like any criteria about pronunciation really out of the assignments in the rubric. So by starting with presentational speaking, we really gained a lot of ground. So a presentational writing rubric was very easy to make. And then we spent a lot of time talking about what's the difference between interpersonal and presentational, and we were able to bang out an interpersonal rubric as well very easily. So we kind of, I don't think we chose presentational speaking intentionally as our first step, but looking back and reflecting on it, I'm really glad we did. I think it's a logical order, and I'm happy we did do it that way. And then, of course, as we started talking about presentational writing and as we talked about interpersonal speaking, we went back and tweaked presentational speaking, and so it just all becomes very cyclical, right? When you do step 3 or 4 or 5, you learn along the way, and so you're able to go back to step 1 and kind of retweak that. So we did a lot of that this year. Seneca, who's here, she did one of these speeches last year, sharing the story from Acton Boxborough, and I was lucky enough to be her roommate last year here at Proficiency Academy, and I was here with a colleague, and we just, any moment at night or whenever we had a moment grabbing her out of the shower, we were picking her brain, and so I was, Seneca, where are you? There she is. And so my colleague Maggie and I think drove her nuts last year, but she gave an awesome presentation like I am now about Acton Boxborough, and we had just such great access to her because she was in our suite, and then we invited her to come to North Reading, and she just gave us everything we needed, all the tools we needed, and everything she shared with everyone at Proficiency Academy she was able to share with my whole department, and then also kind of tailor it to our needs as well. And so I think that's a huge part of your path to proficiency, is bring people in as often as you can. And I mean, those people are sitting right here in this room, so do it. I can't say enough about it. So thank you to Seneca for really giving us the push we needed. And then, again, we spent a lot of time comparing and sharing assessments. I talked a lot about our access to technology, which hopefully you have as well. We do everything. We record our students a lot, which makes it really easy to share with colleagues, to calibrate, all of those things. This year as well, we also gave the STAMP test. I'm going to show a few slides about what we learned with that, but the STAMP test, by giving the STAMP test, we collected some meaningful data, got some meaningful feedback, but at the same time, we also piloted it, we also tried it out. So now when we give the STAMP and other tests for the seal by literacy, we kind of feel like we know what we're doing a little bit. So that was also a really great move on our part. I'm glad we did it. And then I think something else that's very important for departments is for our summative assessments, we came up with a list of protocols. And so we agreed department-wide, for example, like when the kids are doing a speaking assessment, like no scripts, which, I mean, duh, we all know that, but, we like put it down on paper, and we put down on paper, who gets a graphic organizer, who doesn't, so who gets a scaffolding and who doesn't, and who, gets this or gets that. So even though our summative assessments for the most part are common, we have a little bit of work to do on that, at least we have common protocols about the scaffolding and the tools that our kids can use, which I found very helpful. And then just some of the PD that we did this year, I listed as well. So the STAMP testing that we did, just to kind of pilot, what we did was we tested in January, and we tested all four parts of the test: the listening, the speaking, the reading, and the writing. We did 4 Arabic students, which we don't teach Arabic, so those are kids that are enrolled in our ESL program, our native speakers of Arabic. And then we tested out of our world language department 4 French students and 32 Spanish students. They were all level 3. All the French students were honors. You can see I kind of just put some stats there. And then all the test takers were random and volunteered. So it wasn't a huge number, but we felt pretty confident the fact that they were volunteered and that they were random, that we got a pretty good sampling. And what we learned, and I think this was just such valuable information, is that what we learned was that we teach a curriculum that most of our students are not ready for. And for those of you who are attending Greg's session, I know I attended Greg's session last year, and it was a huge takeaway, just the amount of hours and the amount of time the kids need at the novice level, and then even more so how much time they need at the intermediate level. And once he was going through what each level meant and how many hours it was, we really learned that we rushed our kids to the novice level, and our kids were performing at like novice high or intermediate low, but we were like giving them like an intermediate mid or an intermediate high curriculum. And so that was like a huge learning curve for us. So you can just kind of see the two arrows. In this slide is something I grabbed right after we did this and we got the data. Of course, I went straight to administration, had a meeting with administration to go over the data with them. And so that's something else that's really important to your path to proficiency, is collecting data and then sharing it with administrators, so that way they can be your allies and give you the tools you need, to continue down the path. And so, just like what Greg's going to be talking about with people in his session that I learned last year, our kids, if you look at the middle, our kids have 55 fewer hours than the ones that are recommended, and that adds up over time. And you can see the one at the bottom we learned, from Greg, and then it was reflected in our results from STAMP that our kids scored below the national average. But I was able to say they scored below the national average. Of course they did, because we don't have 7th grade. So where's 7th grade? I want level 1 for 7th grade. And like I said, we didn't get it, but it did make it all the way in the budget process. It was cut at the very end. So we do have administrative support for it. It was just kind of, the big picture, and it should stay there. So maybe next year, the year after, we'll have it. But giving your kids something like the STAMP test and having that data and then putting your data on top of national data is really valuable, and just gives you great tools to go to administrators asking for, whatever it is you think that you're missing to help you with your path to proficiency. So, because even our students did not score very far below the national average at all. And so I was able to really say, like, look, we've got very talented, very dedicated teachers, but not enough hours, so give us more hours. So some student work samples. Of course, just kind of shifting more towards thematic units and more towards assessment. Just all of a sudden, our student work just kind of organically started popping up looking like this. In the fall, when there was Hurricane Maria and all the hurricanes, our kids were doing just real authentic work. They were talking about, what do you do during a hurricane? Like, how do you help your dog during a hurricane? Like, what do you do with pets, or, et cetera, like with electricity and things like that. So just with all the talk we've been doing about proficiency, just naturally the teachers just started gravitating towards real, authentic, real life situations, and students producing work like this. Also, just a shout out to Zachary Jones, if you're familiar with his website, doing something about like the school schedule. Again, bringing an authentic resource, and Zachary Jones on his website just has 25 different schools and has their school schedules, their calendars loaded up, and the kids can just scroll through them, and they were comparing and contrasting school schedules. So the names of classes, times, things like that. And so really great work that used to, I'm sure, be a photocopy or a packet at some point, but now is authentic and real and meaningful. Something that we're working on now, we certainly have not mastered, but we've really started working on this. And Alejandro's here someplace. Alejandro, raise your hand. There's Alejandro. I attended Alejandro's workshop at MaFLA last year, and he had a huge impact on me and then my ability to lead my district with the interpretive mode and differentiating it. So not just playing the CD from the textbook, for example, and even beyond that, not even necessarily playing a YouTube video for the whole class, but getting them on headsets, getting them on the Chromebooks so they can listen at their own pace. Google Chrome does have an extension where you can even slow down the pace or speed it up, so that way you're able to differentiate it for the kids, and having them do interpretive listening like this. Interpretive listening never looked like this before in North Reading, and now it does. Not 100%, we're still working on it, but we're getting there. We're really curating some nice resources for that. And then self-reflection, for those of you that are with me in Greta's session, we talked about this a lot yesterday, and I know Kim in Melrose and the Melrose teachers have helped us out with this a lot too, but making sure that our kids are reflecting after all of their assessments, taking more work off of us as teachers and putting more on them, making them the stakeholders in their own learning. And you can see some work statements there, and I included these because you can see that some of these students even talked about like levels of proficiency, like the one that's in the top one, the top corner. She says, lastly, I could use more sentences instead of simple strings of words. And when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, they know the path to proficiency, they know. And so I think like a bunch of us like read that sentence and a few other students who wrote similar things, and that was just like, they got it. Like, our work is, we've got it, they're doing it. So that was just really great to hear students reflect on using, the language right from our rubric. It was really great. And then this actually came from the state of Georgia's website. So I guess a thank you to Greg kind of indirectly maybe, is a great activity that we did quite a few times in different units is the teacher reads from a script. And this was about outfits and clothing, and the students have to draw it. So the teacher reads like, oh, there's a girl and she's wearing a blue blouse with a yellow skirt that has flowers on, and the kids have to draw it. And again, just kind of I think just a creative and a different way of doing comprehensible input and interpretive listening. And then just some stats, some data to show you, some of our success, just to show that all this is working. And so if you're still a skeptic, if you're not sure if it's for you or not, in 2017, 2018, we had a 5-year high number of students. And I mean, some of that was a bit of a bubble in population, but not all of it. A lot of it was increased enrollment. We ran 6 sections of French, which was the highest in 5 years that we'd run. We had 48 students reach level 5 or AP, and therefore complete 5 years of foreign language, meaning that they're not giving up on us first, because I think the curriculum we teach now is more accessible to them. But then at the flip side, they get more meaning, they get more purpose out of our class, so they sign up. So we also had 26 students, which is the lowest number we've had in 5 years, take Spanish 1, which means our middle school program is more successful because we have fewer students having to repeat level 1 at the high school. And then we did lose AP Spanish for a couple years, but we brought it back and we have record high numbers now. And then going into next year, like I said, we do have 30 fewer seniors going into next year, but our AP numbers have remained at an all-time high. Our Spanish 5 class actually has 3 additional students, so 30 fewer kids in the whole class, but 3 additional kids in Spanish 5. And then our French 3 numbers have double-digit gains. So we're really hoping that all of those kids continue into French 4 and French 5, and we really see it. And I just kind of put in the box there, is it because we teach for proficiency now and the students are getting more out of our class? And hopefully the answer is yes. So I wanted to leave some time for questions. I just kind of have a few pictures about our students having more authentic experiences, which is something else we've done. We've added more field trips, more travel opportunities, just for the kids to have fun. It is one of our world readiness standards for the kids to use the language and enjoy it as lifelong learners. So if your principal or whoever ever says you can't go on a field trip, you can show them the standard and say, oh, but it's our standards to have fun, and eat it. So even the middle one there is the kids at a restaurant. And I did have a little bit of a hard time getting administrative support for the kids to go to a restaurant and order in the target language and all of that. But then I had the tools from the Proficiency Academy last year to be like, oh, but wait a minute, this is really great interpersonal speech and authentic real life example, and voila, the kids went. So yeah, and then advocacy is huge. That's us coming out of a school committee meeting, getting a trip approved. I made these kind of posters, that just any chance, any fair, anything that's going on in town, I put those up just to kind of advocate for our department and what we're doing. And then yeah, just what's coming up next is grammar as a concept. The PACE model is huge for us. We're going to really dive into that next year. Giving more meaningful feedback is something we're going to continue. Everything that we're talking about here, just the themes probably that you guys have are the same ones we have, in North Reading as well, and that's it. So I think I talked about this already. So yeah, my biggest takeaway is really what I said. This Proficiency Academy gives you the tools to advocate for what you need, those of you that are leaders in your department. For those of you that are teachers, it gives you the tools you need in your classroom. And so I think, and I hope everyone has as great of experience this year as I had last year, and you're able to continue to lead your class or your whole department if you're in that position along the path to proficiency. And here's my contact information if you want to be in touch about something. Thank you. But did anyone have a quick question? Yeah.
Could you offer some last names? Because you threw a lot of first names around.
Sure.
Melrose.
Oh, sure. Well, they can wave. So Kim Talbot is from Melrose right here. Carlos Brown from Wilmington is the one that's filming in the back. Jorge Allen's not here, but he was the conference chair last year. So if you were at MaFLA, you heard him speak last year. So yeah, and then seal of biliteracy, Pat, of course. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah.
How did you pay for the stamp test?
Good question. So the stamp test is $17.50, I think, if I'm right. And so since that was data that was meaningful to us and really had nothing for the kids, we did pay. I was able to scrap together some department money, but then the district actually kicked in some money as well to support us. Next year when we do the seal of biliteracy, we will pass the testing cost on to the kids because there is something in it for them. But for us, when we're collecting data, and it's like for us, we pay. So yeah.
I'm curious why you chose stamp over Apple.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer. We just did. Yeah. Sorry, to repeat the question for our taping is why we chose stamp over Apple, and I don't think I have a good answer. Yeah.
A few slides back, did you have a link to your rubrics? Can we look at them?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I do have a link to my rubrics, which you can look at. It's not something I'm willing to share, just because. Well, no, I'm not willing to share, like to copy and whatnot, because our rubrics. There are still some things, and I mean, this is an important path to proficiency as well. It's a path to proficiency, not a jump off a cliff to proficiency. And a lot of our teachers are a little bit more concerned with grammar and the accuracy than ACTFL would like. And so you'll see, this is just a huge map. You can see, you know, like, I mean, this is something you could never even print. It wouldn't fit on a piece of paper. This just lives on our website. But then when you get to, let's say, you know, like Novice High or something, the target, that's something that can print and go on an assignment. But this is a whole map just for, you know, everyone to see the scope. But you can see we do have control of nouns and control of verbs, which is something that ACTFL would kind of be like, it's a little too heavy on the grammar control. But it's important. It's where my teachers are at, you know, and it's a path to proficiency, not jump off a cliff. And maybe next time we revisit this, maybe we'll kind of, you know, get language control into one category and not, you know, have it in two. So, yeah. All set? Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah. Thank you.